Welcome to the Lockdown Economy, a social non-profit initiative by the think tank AlterContacts to help small businesses and self-employed professionals overcome the challenges of the pandemic and reactivate the economy. My name is Karen Rickes, and today our guest is Sandra Schmoldt. Sandra is the founder of Equilido Transformation Support, which is an online transformative coaching business helping clients worldwide to find their purpose in life. Hello, Sandra. How are you today?
Hi, I'm really great, Karen. I'm so happy to be with you again after, I think, 3 months it has been since I was in touch with you guys last time. So it's great to be here again.
Yeah, we're also really grateful to have you back here. Indeed, as you mentioned, this is your second interview with Lockdown Economy already. For those of our viewers who are new to Lockdown Economy, could you share a bit about your business?
Sure. I'm an ICF and ACC credentialed coach. That is, I'm certified, and I'm also working as a mental fitness trainer. So I set up my business in October 2018 when I had pivoted from a corporate career as communications expert. So I had been in the communications arena for decades, actually more than 2 decades. Now you can guess my age. And here I am in a completely new setup. And what I do, rather than coach mere symptoms, actually, I work with my clients from all over the world on the root causes that sabotage their desired outcomes. And that's a really exciting field to be in, because I help them to learn how to recover quickly from setbacks and disappointments, and how to deal with negative emotions in a way so they would just use them as an alert signal before they learn to shift into a positive mindset. But there is a but. You have to tone your mindset just as if you were in a gym, basically, and would go and work on your body and would want to tone your body. So it's not a quick process. It does take time, but
I
it's
see. Sounds
of
sounds
great
very
joy and
interesting.
pleasure. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. And yeah, based on what you've described, I guess this is ever more relevant in these times. Now that sort of a lot of people are, I think, struggling with the circumstances, the effects of the pandemic. Could
Yeah.
you tell us a bit about how the pandemic has affected your business since we last spoke?
Yeah, actually, it's interesting for me because it's twofold. Maybe something that I would like to remind you and all of us of is that we never will speak to anyone more than we speak to ourselves. And that's, of course, true for myself, because I do have those inner dialogues. I also had them, of course, during the lockdown, building my business, thinking that I may not be good enough, I may not know enough, it may not matter what I have to say. There may be too many coaches out there anyways. I mean, there are millions of coaches out there, right? So you
Mhm.
may recognize what this is all about. And I figure, and from what I know from my clients and the people I talk with, everybody has that negative self-talk. And that's exactly where I started to dig down deeper, because I also have been trained in an approach which is called hypnotherapy. And
Mhm.
that deals actually with the power of our inner images, our inner states of mind, which are really ingrained in our unconscious. So it's deeper than mere words, it's deeper than conscious thoughts, and dialogue actually is also not enough if we look at it closely. It happens literally on our inner stage, if you will. And
Mhm.
believe it or not, my clients, if I ask them about their inner obstacles, what really, blocks them in moving forward, in building their business, in taking the next courageous step,
Yeah.
is actually that, hmm, let's say, that happening on their inner stage, the feeling that something is taking over their script and steering them into a direction which is really not in their best interest.
Mhm.
And if you think about that just as an experiment, think of a situation where you may feel hijacked by a really negative feeling. You may feel sad or frustrated or disillusioned or maybe angry. And if I asked you, how does that make you feel in your body? You may even be able to tell me exactly where does that come from. So my clients, for instance, they describe, well, this actually, it feels like a slimy monster. That's something a client told me just yesterday, a slimy, dark monster coming from behind me, usually from the right, and it's sitting on my shoulder and it's whispering in my ear that I'm not good enough. Just to give you an example, that has become my world. And it is so exciting because, you know, it is literally also my inner stage I have to deal with. I'm growing more and more conscious of those automated, hardwired patterns on my mind. But as this is a universal phenomenon, as research shows, everybody has those, well, what I would call inner saboteurs, those hardwired patterns that have, you know, they come in very different shapes, forms, and sizes, in different formats with different assumptions and voices. They're very individual, but you can still simplify them basically to 10 different patterns, which you can even assess in a free assessment. And I would be happy to share that link to the assessment later. So to make this long story short, that's basically what I observe with solopreneurs, with women in business mainly. That is people who are sensitive to how they feel, how they show up in their life, what may block them, and also, you know, high achievers in the corporate world. Everybody has those negative emotions, and I'm really excited and blessed, I must say, to be able to help them to learn, you know, shift out of that state of mind and step into their inner power, actually, to really activate what they want to bring to the world, navigate into a bigger picture, and pull out of that negative state of mind.
I see.
Yeah.
That sounds very interesting. So you already mentioned that you, of course, saw some differences in how your sort of clients respond to the circumstances, that maybe some are, yeah, quite relieved at the sort of fact that life in general slowed down a bit over the last couple of months, whereas others faced, yeah, serious challenges in also adapting their own business, of course. Could you tell us a bit more about sort of what you noticed in your environment, how your customers were responding to the crisis?
Yeah, some of them actually turned inwards. You know, I mean, I'm probably not telling you anything new if I say that, you know, we do have a bias to be maybe more introverted, or we may have a bias to be extroverted and very outgoing. So depending on how you show up in life, that of course was triggered certainly more strongly during the crisis, because in times of challenge and crisis and disruption, you actually go back to your old ingrained pattern that is linked to your survival mode. That's basically what's happening when we're in a crisis situation or in a situation of uncertainty and change. We tend to cling to what has always worked for us, and important to note, since our early childhood. So basically, if you look at it that way, we look at our world through the lens of a 4 to 5-year-old child. Now, how does that feel? I mean, that sounds strange, right? I mean, it's like, what? Because what kind of knowledge do you have available when you're 4 or 5? But the thing is, at that age, we're wired to survive and make it into adulthood. So we're looking for solutions within that framework which we have available as a child, and we will come up with solutions. And those solutions become basically our patterns, our beliefs, our hardwired automatic habits that become our invisible bodies until we are adults. And guess what? Of course, when we're adults, those solutions from then don't prove to be helpful anymore. They're just hardwired. They're like reflexes, but very, very unconscious. So I don't know if I've even answered the the question you asked me, but I hope this was helpful.
Yeah,
You see, I'm
definitely. I
very
think,
passionate about this world and the possibilities it's opening.
yeah, it's great to hear, and I have to say I never really thought about it that way. I guess we've all sort of reflected, of course, on sort of where do our beliefs, our reflexes, as you mentioned, come from. So it's definitely interesting to hear your thoughts on that. And if you were to sort of continue on that learning theme, so to say, but tying it back to the pandemic, what would you say are some of your biggest learnings in this crisis as an entrepreneur?
My biggest learning personally and professionally was that even a pandemic and even a lockdown will not prevent me from stepping into my inner power, into those 5, what we call sage powers. That is the power to see a gift in any situation, a gift and an opportunity. Well, this may sound cheesy, I mean, we all, tend to talk about, what's the gift in this crisis? But it's going much, much deeper than that, because this perspective is way beyond the fear that we first have to overcome. And maybe to share a little exercise, I know I've done that 3 months ago, but maybe just to repeat for people who have not seen this talk, it may be useful. That's what I hear from lots of people, because before you can even shift from fear into that state, well, let's say state of love, state of a positive mindset, you have to use a little trick. And that trick helps you to actually shift away from your thoughts that are blocking everything and shift into your organism, into your body. So what helps is actually to do a little exercise that triggers your sensations. For instance, very, very simple. If you feel blocked and panicky in a situation, just rub your 3 fingertips with such a tension that you can actually feel the ridges on your fingers. Really focus on that, on your fingerprint. And if you do that a while, actually 10 seconds are already enough to give a clear signal to your mind that, oh, you can focus on those ridges on your finger. And then I'm just asking you, if you do this little experiment, what do you notice? What do you notice, Karen?
I think it's sort of a very, like, it's a body signal in a way for me to step back a bit and sort of have a more inner sense of calm, kind of. And by
Exactly.
focusing on the fingertips, it's like everything else just gets shut out of the mind to some
Exactly,
degree.
that's the effect. Yeah. I thank you for sharing that, because this is exactly what we want. We want to leave that panicky state, which is all up here in our neocortex running on our mind. And we want to get to that calm, clarity, and objectivity, creativity, even to handle challenges with much more effect, with much more impact. Because, if we move on with a very clear focus, that will make a big difference, which is up to you, of course, to test in your real life. You may just go and rub your fingertips every once in a while when you feel, you're struggling, and just see what it does for you. And that's just the beginning of the journey. Because what I haven't mentioned is actually, well, I have mentioned it briefly maybe, that actually this is a mental fitness approach. It's, imagine your old habits, those unconscious, ingrained sabotaging habits, like old muscle in your brain. And unfortunately, in the, well, let's say, wrong parts, that is really old parts of the brain, which are all linked to survival instincts. That's our reptilian brain. What we want to do with exercises like that is to build new mental muscle in a region of our brain which is linked to the emotion, to our ability to visualize, to activate change, to move forward and create a path which is actually really meeting our desires and which is aligned with who we want to be. So, and this actually, that what we call in the program I'm offering as part of my coaching services, that's what we call the sage mode. A client of mine, she calls that her captain, or another client calls it her director on her inner stage, you know, the director who's really having the script and running the show, and nobody else, not even any inner saboteur who may just hijack your play actually and get on stage and, you know, mess everything up. So you want to shift into that stage more and more, but there's a but. If you want to build new muscle, it simply does take time. So there is a formula actually, which you may know from nutrition experts who tell you, well, if you want to change your diet and really, you know, let go of snacks or savory or sweets, I'm rather the savory type of guy, and you know, I can't, it's hard for me to do without chips, for instance. Constant challenge. But what you may have heard is that 6 weeks actually are enough to change your habits. And that's also true for your mental muscle shifting into your sage state. If you repeat those exercises, tuning or toning your positive mindset, if you will, 3 times a day for just 3 minutes, you will have a shift, a measurable change in the gray matter of the brain, which can actually be measured in, for instance, an MRI scan. So it is visible. It has been proven by years and years of research. And I find it very fascinating to have my clients actually report back that, you know, the impact is immense on their performance, for instance, on their relationships, on how they interact with their teammates, with their kids. If you have a teenage son or daughter in their puberty, you may know what that may mean. If you know, talk to them on, say, in a sage mode, it can be and will be contagious. So that's another arena actually that's of possibilities that's opening up with that. Because one thing I haven't mentioned, but we may all have experienced that, is actually that our saboteurs are contagious. So if we're in saboteur mode and in a conflict, you know, struggling with someone, and you know how it goes, right? One word comes to the other and it's escalating and we feel miserable and that's our saboteurs interacting. But once we've shifted into our wise self, into the empathetic, loving state of mind, that is also contagious, which you may have experienced, for instance, when you are in love, right? I mean, when we fall in love, our sages are dancing with each other. And after a while, you may be aware that it changes once you have had to clean the house once too much, and you know those patterns are repeating and repeating and repeating all over again. That's when your saboteurs kick in, basically. And there are different saboteurs. There are 10 different saboteurs, ranging from, for instance, well, to give you an example, my husband has a strong avoider saboteur. And I have a strong stickler saboteur. Stickler is the perfectionist that needs to organize things, have things structured and pure and clean and, you know, under control at any time. So guess what? guess what's happening at home when I'm in my saboteur mode, in my stickler mode, and I also have a controller saboteur, to be very honest with you. Well, this goes out to the world. Okay, you all know I have a stickler and a controller saboteur. Here I am showing up. But I'm sharing that because it's possible to weaken those saboteurs, to silence those states of mind, and shift into the sage state quicker and quicker and quicker. So the speed is actually what really makes the big difference. It's not that we will ever get rid of our saboteurs. That would be promised too much. Even, if you're enlightened, well, I don't know anything about enlightenment, but I think it's a process that basically helps you to speed up the time in which you let go of those negative emotions and speed up the time of your recovery from all kinds of challenges and struggles you're going through. How is that helpful, I wonder?
Very interesting. I think just generally sharing these kind of insights, maybe prompting myself and others who watch this to reflect on these kind of mental mode saboteurs, as you call them. I think that's very interesting and probably very helpful to a lot of people. But to kind of round off the interview today, I'd be curious to know, how can we help you? Could you maybe name 3 things that sort of looking ahead at the next couple of months that you could use help with?
Well, actually, I started, and that's also a little, maybe a tip to other business owners, solopreneurs. I started to be present on Clubhouse. And Clubhouse is the new kid on the block, as you know, in social media. So it's an audio platform where you can actually really step into conversations with all kinds of people from all over the world. And I have started to offer Clubhouse rooms, Clubhouse events, where I'm more than happy to also have saboteurs invited to our stage. And actually, I've had very, very touching events happening already with people from all walks of life who felt safe and protected to open up. So in case you're on Clubhouse, just go and search for me, and I will be super happy to have you with me in my room, which is called Saboteur Talk. Beyond that, I will be very happy to, have a conversation with you, with anyone who feels they're struggling. Please do reach out to me. Let's have a talk, which is, of course, free. I'm curious to hear more about how you're doing, how you're struggling, and if you see that this may be for you to get on that journey, which is just a 6 weeks journey with an impact which is amazing. And I'm happy to provide some more details about that. Go visit my website, which is equilido.com. You'll find it here underneath the interview, I think, Karen, right? So I'm happy for whatever and whoever is coming my way. I'm open, and would be super happy to connect with you.
That sounds really good. We're going to make sure to get your message out there. Thank you so much, Sandra, for sharing your insights with us today. And thank you to everyone who joined us here today. As Sandra mentioned, please find any and all links to get in contact with her in the description of the video below. I invite you to like this video and subscribe to our channel. On our channel, you can find many more insights from entrepreneurs in many different countries and business sectors. So please have a look and stay tuned.